from art perspective, I can one point that I can surely tell you is you should be original. Like, yes, your idea, it has to be a learned original. It can't be like aaj eureka moment hota hai, वैसा नहीं होता है. Practice is what is needed. Day in and day out, you practice. You check people's work. You see what is there in trend. What are the technologies or the softwares that are helping you out to ease out your work.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Lalith Dhanush Show. I'm super excited to tell you that this is the 25th episode of the Lalith Dhanush Show, and I would like to thank you from the bottom of my heart for viewing, subscribing to our channel, and we definitely do promise to bring much more amazing stories at your screen. Today's guest, they are in fact two wonderful ladies from Mumbai, and they run this channel called The Eternal Epics. This podcast will give you an insight about what it takes to run your own Instagram channel and how you could monetize it and build a revenue model around it. You will also understand what it takes to take something as old as our own epics and make them fun, colorful, entertaining to the audience at large. Watch this entire episode, and I must say it has been one amazing conversation with these two ladies.
Hello Soumya, hello Madhura. Welcome to the first ever Lalith Dhanush Show, which is going online. Usually I have people offline right here in my setup, but welcome to my show. How are you guys doing?
We are good. We are really excited to be here.
Yeah, really excited and also a bit nervous, maybe.
I'm sure, the full podcast, as the podcast gets through, you will settle in and your story will be inspiring and definitely worth sharing to the world that is watching around. So just to set a little bit of context, I stumbled upon your page, The Eternal Epics, with Akshita. And I was so fascinated by your concept because not many people in the younger generation are familiar with those stories, but they are on Instagram. And you've made it so accessible, you've made it so colorful that I feel all youngsters now could start getting hooked onto your page and learn from our ever green epics, you could say. So tell me, how did you start your Instagram page?
So, firstly, this was a very, every time somebody asks us, हमारा दिमाग में यही सवाल आता है कि, oh my God, it is a funny story because it's almost a year back when I and Madhura were just generally chatting, and I happened to tell her कि, listen, I have taken up this course and I wish to do a character design thing. Will you help me out? I plan to keep Narada as a central character. Okay. And when I spoke to her in detail, she loved the idea. She added a lot of input to it. And then we landed up creating Narada as a center point, and we started thinking, because Narada being the the narrator across the spiritual universe, we thought, why not keep him as our narrator too, and let's share the stories that we are aware of. So it was going to be a very small initiative wherein we can share our bit, jitna hame pata tha, read more, share knowledge, and that's why we thought, let's do that on Instagram and see how it goes.
Super.
Yeah, so actually there's like a background to it as well. So I and Soumya, we've been friends for now almost a decade. We were in college together, okay. And that's how we know each other. And so even during college when we used to hang out with each other, these stories, these epic stories were something, a common point of discussion for us also. Oh, nice. We used to share these stories between us. Like I used to ask her, Acha, do you know this one? Or she used to tell me, this is something that I know. This is something that her grandmother had, told the stories to her about. So that is how we used to share those. And then after college, we kind of went our own ways in terms of the profession. She's a designer, I'm a marketer. So we've been doing stuff in our own fields separately. And then after that, like Soumya just said, she took up this course, and then by just chance, we were like, okay, let's do it. Like, this is like a common passion for both of us, right? And let's put together our skills that we have, like writing and her design, and then let's work together. Let's see how it goes. And yeah, and today here we are.
I think that's a combination that's made in heaven, right? Because if there's a design, the design better convey a message, and the message is where you are the marketer, you are the storyboarder. And I'm sure that this match has been so fruitful, and today you have such a nice following, you have such a nice way of putting your stories across. Now I want to also understand that you told me you guys are friends. However, in terms of the designing part, are both of you involved? And even in the story part, are both of you are involved, or you guys just do your own thing and then stitch it on later?
So we are together in every phase pretty much, because when it comes to visualization, it's not only an artist's ka job, or when you're thinking of a story, it is not only a writer ka job, and it's our baby. So when we think of a story, we think of the root, and then we discuss upon ki kya acha dikhega, what could be more interesting for a reader. That's how we settle on. And then she suggests me, Soumya, you can do something like this. This might be more interesting. And when it comes to writing, I suggest her, maybe we can touch base on these points. Again, then when it comes to writing, she's really good. So there I don't interfere a lot. But yeah, it's always a Milli Bhagat. So that's how our stories are coming up well.
Completely collaborative, because like Soumya rightly said, it's not that because she's a designer, she's supposed to only design. Because I'm a writer, I'm only supposed to write. It's only when you share stuff, you collaborate and put both the brains together and brainstorm. That's when we arrive at what we eventually put out. And it's interesting also because many times what happens that if I have a point of view and she has a point of view, when it comes to discussion, we discover so many more points, like something that I might have not observed about this particular story, that some insight that she had or some insight that I had that she can incorporate in her design. So it's always about discussion and doing it together basically.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, because you need that multiple perspective, right? For anything, be it solving a problem or even coming up with a creative idea, a multiple perspective gives it multiple dimensions. You could look at it in different ways. You could look at things that you might not be aware of and the other person is aware of. And I definitely do agree to the fact that it enhances your productivity level. And your kind of output starts increasing and starts getting better over time. So I think you guys are a dream team that way. And I'm glad for a lot of viewers who are going to watch this episode, we can also share some of your insights about your journey. So when did you start this? Like precisely how long has it been? And tell me a couple of challenges that both of you faced while doing this. I'm sure you have 100. But if there are 2 that tops the list, what would that be?
So firstly, we started on the July 3rd of this year, basically. So it's
last year. July 3 was the day we launched the pitch.
Yes.
And you can say like a month prior before, to that, or 2 months prior to that, we actually had this idea and we began working on it.
Yeah. And we've had challenges initially, which the idea was just to share stories. We are really happy and surprised that we've got so much feedback, and that is what is making us grow so much. And the challenges are also coming from there only, because every time you share a story, it's not just your story out there. There are so many people who have so many views about it. That is something that we're really enjoying in the whole process. I don't look at it as a challenge, but as a learning. The fact that when we put out a story, there are so many perspectives coming to us. So that is something that is really helping us. So we are growing with our audience. So that is something that I really appreciate in this whole process, that here my end customer is giving me real-time feedback and I can incorporate it whenever I can. And that is then and there. I don't have to wait for a long process to incorporate that. Because considering the fact that our stories are so many versions, our scriptures are not limited to one Purana or one scripture. There are so many Puranas, and so many Puranas give so many versions. To try and get the best out of the lot is what we try to achieve. But there are certain views that are different from us, which literally sometimes collide with us, and sometimes we learn from it. So it's a beautiful journey there. So that I look at it as
actually sorry to cut you, but the challenge is like Soumya just said, that it's just never one version of a story. There are several Purans, several different epics, several different people who've written those epics. So same story has different detailing is different in different scriptures. So at times what happens is because it's social media, it's out there, anybody and everybody can come and comment on it. So sometimes people become a little more adamant. No, this is the scripture which is right, and this is the story which is right.
A lot
So
of sentimental value is
Yeah, exactly. A lot of sentimental value. And we respect that. Like, we genuinely respect that, because we also have certain feelings associated to some stories. Like one story which I've been told by my grandmother, I would not want to change it, right? So that's the same for a viewer also. कि मुझे ये किसी ने पता, मैंने ये पढ़ा है, तो ये ऐसे ही होना चाहिए. Fair enough. So we respect and we get along, go along with
try
it.
to, like, as much possible, we try to balance it. We try to mention, in the story, this is one of the stories, one of the versions of the stories that's out there. So as to not contradict or be disrespectful, that we are just mentioning okay, there are several. This is one version that we know of, because the main thing is that we are not claiming to be experts in these fields. Okay, we are learning along the way, and we are sharing the knowledge that we are learning with all of you all. So there have been times when we've also been corrected and mentioned no, this is not what it is, like this is the correct one, and we've also accepted that. Sometimes like you said, some people are just very adamant no, this is the only correct way. So like, okay, fine, that's correct, good for you, like we respect all the versions. So it's very interesting, but that way it's very interesting.
Yeah, I also get, I think here is the part where you have an interest in a specific field and the set of stories, and the more you are willing to unlearn some of these not so true stories and relearn them, I think that's when it becomes more interesting, right? But if you go with a very rigid mindset saying, no, this is how it is, this is the narrative, this is how my audience should perceive it, I don't think there is a lot of scope for learning and growth there.
Exactly.
True.
So I want to ask you this question. Now, a lot of people today want to do something on Instagram, right? Like probably if you go to a 10 standard classroom and sit down there and say, hey, what do you want to do in the next 5 years? They don't know which degree they're going to do, but they'll be like, I want to become a YouTuber, Instagrammer. This is like a catchphrase now. Yeah. I want to understand how you guys are making money out of this whole thing. Is there a method? Is there a way that you're doing it? Because today, that is one of the most important things, right? Generating revenue. No matter how good your content is, you better be doing something that gives you that additional motivation. Because if you don't make profit, passion becomes poison. So you tell me how you guys are working around a business model around this.
So, Madhura, you want to go first?
So as of now, still building upon the audiences. It's not the monetization part. If you say frankly, we have not really reached there, because we're still very small, and we're still there's a lot of potential that we know we can achieve. So having said that, but there are different avenues that we are exploring. So now we did a set of calendars in December last year, which had so the interesting bit about the calendars were, normally you see Bhagwan wale calendars, gods and god, but then we also included stories about the gods. So every month had a god illustration and a story along with it. So we're trying to bring an add-on to the people, and that ways we're trying to like you say, generate revenue. The other one is we are also now exploring YouTube. We have just put out 2 videos on YouTube as of now, and now we're exploring that as well. So hoping that we can build out that and generate some sort of profit, some sort of revenue from there also.
We did a seminar too on a topic of spirituality again. Then we also did few books. So we published our books, which we are really happy about, and we plan to see further how we can develop into digital, because ebooks are a trend today, right? And it's easier for accessibility even across the globe. So that's how we are planning to, and that, like Madhura rightly said, there are a lot of avenues, but you need to take the right step. Immediately there's no point in jumping the gun, right? Because we need to first make sure that our content is right, it is out there for people to read and people are happy enough, then you go ahead and start thinking further, is what our perspective was, and we are really pretty happy and content about that now.
No, so the thing to add here is that see, when you get into that mindset that I have to get money out of this, sometimes it can happen that your focus is gone. See, the whole point of why we started this was because we were passionate about it. We were really interested in doing it. So that is what we're focusing. We're focusing in churning out good content. And then slowly, as avenues are opening up, we are exploring them. That's it.
I think that's the way to go, because once you have quality in your product and a small little brand that surrounds it, then now your product itself starts speaking for it, and more people want to be a part of your community or the kind of content that you're putting out. So it definitely does make sense. And on the other side, to get the right business model, even I can be very honest and say in the last 3 years of business, I've been shifting various business models simply to understand what fits right for me, right? And experimenting gives you the decision-making ability of what works and what doesn't work. So I think you guys are doing a great job, and I think all of this comes as a part of the process, right? As every day you start learning and all of these things. Now I want to ask you, moving on to the next part, I want to ask you, let's say if there were a bunch of 16-year-olds who want to do Instagram as their full-time job or their main passion and interest. I'll take one suggestion from each of you, and hopefully from your area of expertise, from the design perspective or the creative perspective, and from the story perspective and all of that. So first we'll go to Soumya. Soumya, so tell me one learning or one lesson that you would want to share with a person who wants to become an Instagrammer in the near future.
So from art perspective, one point that I can surely tell you is you should be original. Yes, your idea, it has to be a learned original. It can't be like eureka moment hota hai, waisa nahi hota hai. Practice is what is needed. Day in and day out, you practice. You check people's work. You see what is there in trend. What are the technologies or the softwares that are helping you out to ease out your work. That is one thing. So being original and being consistent, that is very important. Like aaj maine ek bana diya, chhod diya, that is not going to help you grow your follower base, nor will it help you grow as an artist. Like if you आज मैंने एक बना दिया, बस हो गया, 1 महीने के लिए भूल जाऊंगी, उसके बाद में वापस पेंसिल उठाऊंगी ना, नहीं जमेगा. You have to do it every day. That's how you grow. Like today when I'm drawing a Shiva, I'm so happy because I know it easily comes on a paper for me. I don't have to think. I don't have to think twice कि ये अस्त्र है या वो अस्त्र है, ये कलर में है या ये जटा है ऐसे. नहीं, it comes seamlessly. That's how it is supposed to be. It has to be consistent. So these are the 2 pointers that I would really like to put it out for young audience.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense, because today as an artist, you can be a great copycat, but you will truly make your marksmanship felt only when you show your authentic original self. Because if not, then you're not an artist, right? You're just another copycat. You're just taking it and then you're putting it out there. But the fact that there is a thought that is independent of what is already there, I think that makes it flavorful, that makes it colorful and much more interesting for the audience who's absorbing it. So I think that is also something that helps you build a brand. And speaking of brand, we'll go to the marketing expert in the house. That's Madhura. So tell us, Madhura, what is your one takeaway that you'd love to give?
So what I feel is, as a content creator, you essentially are an artist. Okay. And so if you're an artist, there are people who are out there to watch your art or to watch you perform or whatever it is, your craft that you're doing. So it's very important to be very alert about what is it that the people are giving the feedback on. So if you're doing something and you realize that, this is not working out, it can't be ki yaar nahi chala. Why did it not work? Did you do something wrong? What is it that the people are expecting? How can you make yourself better? Like, for example, I'll give you the example of Eternal Epics only. So initially when we started, we were just doing stories in English. Then we started to get a lot of comments from people saying ki "Arey, Hindi mein karo, English is difficult for us," and stuff like that. So we took that feedback. We realized that there is a much more bigger audience who may not understand the English, however much easy I write it in. So we try to dabble in Hindi. We initially thought because my forte is not writing in Hindi. Okay, I can converse in Hindi, but like my writing is obviously my first, it's English. So then initially I was a bit apprehensive. I was thinking, "Arey, how can I get it?" Because I knew that like people, that's what people wanted. Then we thought, okay, let's try. Then we try to record the story in Hindi, like how I would probably say it if I was talking to you. So I thought maybe that was an easier way out. Then we put up a few stories out there, but we realized that those are not really working. Then I realized like I had no choice, but I had to write those stories in Hindi. So then I started doing that. Like I used to write them in English and then think about same if I was, and I'm trying to be more conversational in the Hindi written work also, like how I would talk to my friend, how I would talk to probably Soumya. If I read a story, how I would tell it to her. I just write it in that conversational tone, and now we've realized that it's working really well. Like people are appreciating the fact that we, took the feedback that they were giving, and it's reaching out much more. So, like I said, it's very important. So feedback is very important, but again, as an artist, you need to also understand the difference between constructive and destructive feedback or criticism. So you need to understand, okay, if somebody is saying something, okay, this is making sense, and okay, I can incorporate this, and this is how I can make things better. But the social media being, you will always have trolls who will just say stuff for the heck of it. So you need to not understand that you cannot be affected by anything and everything, right? You need to understand what is important, how can it make you better, and do the right thing. That's important. And as a 16-year-old, it's very important that you be able to differentiate. Like we also sometimes get this thing ki, this kind of comment came, so what now, what should we do? Like we also get like this question mark kind
I'm
of
sure it does happen, Madhura. So like one of the things that I also feel is from the point that you said, I think the analytical ability to analyze what's working and what's not, or you could even say reflection, the ability to reflect and see, okay, why did my previous post get so much engagement? There were so many likes. Can I connect the dots backwards to see what worked there, and I can plug and play that right here. So I think that's a very valuable lesson. And I also like the fact that once you start doing these things, your wings start broadening up, and now you can start moving into different spheres. You can, like you said, now you're doing videos also on YouTube. Right. So because you know that it has more interaction, it has more of a personal touch, and I'm sure that you've gotten it over the comments and the feedback that you've analyzed over time. So I went through your 2 videos that you've put out. I just went through it like an hour before we got into the podcast. I must say they were really nice. I don't know if you hired special voice moderators or somebody to speak, but it did sound quite professional. It was good, and I think you should do more of it if you ask. It was really, really nice and much more engaging than a normal physical post by itself.
Exactly.
But on an artist perspective, or on a person who's trying to be the creator here, I'm assuming that there is so much work that goes into making that 2.5-minute video. Just to watch it and just say, hey, okay, great video. It is fun, but to make it is a hard thing. So tell me, how hard is it to make it?
So firstly, when we had to crack the look for it also, if you see, the art is more or less in the same lines, but we are sticking to more monotone, considering the fact that I thought maybe a mature audience might also have a look at it. Let's not always keep it colorful. Try something else is what we were thinking. That is why we thought, let's try this and see. And the contrast of a black and a beige, if you have to say, the color difference, that is what was adding more fun to my art. But yeah, process wise, it gets very tedious. कि हर frame बनाओ, you visualize it कि नहीं इसमें ये angle अच्छा रहेगा. Obviously you can't have the same angle, then it gets a little boring for a viewer. You need more perspectives, you need more angles. That is something that I'm really learning in the process, which I'm really enjoying now.
Nice, man. Man, it's been such an insightful talk. So before we're coming to the last fag end of the podcast, so I have a few important questions to ask. Number one, where do you see yourself in the next few years in terms of your eternal epics going? What's the dream? What's the vision like? And yeah.
Madhura, you want to take this question?
I'm actually thinking. Actually, this question I don't like because I never have an answer for this. In all interviews, wherever, I really never have an. Actually, you should start, then I'll add.
So, as Eternal Epics, the day we started to where we've now, it's always been a learning every day. We had never panned out कि एक 9 महीने बाद हम इधर रहेंगे. We never imagined it. So we are happy with God's grace where we are. We look forward that in a year's time, if we can share more content, more interesting stories out there, that is what we are looking forward to. How maybe explore more mediums, like we are very soon trying to keep our YouTube videos more regular, so that like you said, it's more interactive. That is something that we really plan to tap on. Apart from that, let's see how God takes us ahead. That's how what I can say.
Nice. Okay, so last question, or maybe a couple of questions before I let you guys go. You should be a library of stories yourself because you've gone through so much information.
Yeah.
You've it through. Tell me, which is that one story or one specific incident in any of the epics that has really inspired you, motivated you, or given you a fresh perspective that you've learned something from? I'll take one example, like very quick example, because I have another question coming.
Okay, so I can give you one example. The videos, amongst the 2 videos that you saw, the Yugas wala video, that was actually the triggering factor for me to take up this route. Like the way that Yugas have been bifurcated, the values that they are sharing, that is what triggered for me to think that boss, मतलब युगास का एक story में इतना values है, what if we try and tap on other stories सब में? Then that is how we found out कि सब stories में इतने values है. So that is one thing that I would want people to go and watch that video. I don't want to break the suspense there.
Super. I think that's a nice answer, Soumya. Because even I know a little bit about it, and considering that I watched the video.
Yeah.
Madhura, what about you, Madhura?
Yeah, so there's this one really interesting episode which happens in the Mahabharata. Okay, so now all through the Mahabharata, we see this one point of view that the Pandavas are good and the Kauravas are bad. They were really wicked. They were very mean to their brothers and blah blah blah, all of those things. But at the fag end of the epic, what happens is Yudhishthir finds out, like after the death, he finds out that even the Kauravas attained Swargayog. So then that makes you question ki, how is that possible? They were supposed to be evil, right? They were wicked. You always rooted for the Pandavas from the start. Then abhi ye kaise ho gaya? And then it obviously goes on to tell you ki, why this happened, why Yudhishthir is there, why the others are not there, and all of those things. So it's so like it opens your mind to the fact that like the narrative that you have always been aware about, and maybe a majority of you know of, need not always be right. There is always another side to the story, and you need to be open to know what other people have to say, what their perspectives are. So that's a very interesting, that has always stayed with me, this one story. And almost all of the stories that we have, they always have multiple open endings or whatever you want to call it.
I'm sure the amount of values you find in each story is, like Soumya said, it's unique in its own way, but definitely packs a punch if you go down to the root level and all of these things. Now, I've asked you what is the one place where one story that you've gotten highest value of, which you gave me wonderful examples. I'll ask you one last question before I let you guys go. That is, which is that one piece that you've enjoyed working with, especially on Instagram, apart from, of course, the videos, the 2 videos you've put, which is that one piece that both of you really enjoyed, so that I can put it on display as people are watching this? With your permission, we'll just grab a couple of those pictures and we'll show the world what it is like. Yeah.
So for me, it was from the Tirupati temple stories. So the post that triggered everything for us was of a conversation that Lakshmi had with Brahma and Shiva, that had a very interesting expression on their faces, which actually got a lot of reach for us, if you see. And that was very fun for me to work, because it was a very interesting scenario. If you have a look at it, you will know. It's from the Tirupati temple story. For me, Madhura, if you want to share.
I think for me, it's the Dashavatara series that we did. So that opened up a lot of opportunities. Like looking at the Dashavatara series that we did, we also got the book, the board book for children. So that, I think that will always be special. So yeah.
I think you should go ahead with Dashavatara.
No, I will definitely look into both of it, and I really want all the viewers to watch this. Once again, thank you, Madhura and Soumya, for coming online. And yes, I'm super excited for this episode to come out. And I really want people to take your story as an inspiration to do their own thing, right? You don't have to make $1 million, but if you feel like $1 million, that's the start.
Exactly.
Right? And I think your stories are examples of that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having us here.
Yeah. Enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, we really enjoyed it.
I really wish you guys were in and around Bangalore so I could actually call you over to the studio and do it. But I'm sure we will find opportunities in the near future.
Yes, we surely.
Yeah. So thank you, Soumya and Madhura, for joining us one more time, and looking forward to meeting you guys very soon.
Yes.